So I'm Morgan Jowen. I'm the executive director of the Jackson Hole History Museum. And I just want to welcome you all to our June Beers and Banter program. It's a really busy week at the museum. As many of you know, we also have our Eras party tomorrow night, which is our first annual fundraiser here at the museum. And we're featuring the 1920s tomorrow night. So there are still tickets available. If you are interested, you can talk to a staff member or check out our website. And we'll be partying like it's the 1920s in Jackson Hole, which really we're kicking off with tonight, considering we're celebrating Triangle X's 100-year anniversary. It dates back to 1926. So tonight, I first off just want to really thank the Turner family and the Triangle X for joining us at the museum and sharing your stories about the last century of family, ranching, and hospitality at Triangle X. I also want to share a big thank you to our museum members and our donors and program sponsors, Roadhouse and Wyoming Humanities, who make these Beers and Banter programs possible. If you are not yet a member of the museum, you can join tonight. And you can check out more information about our membership program at the front desk. So tonight you did hear from 6 panelists. Is it still working? No, okay. You're going to hear from Allie Turner, John F. Turner, Lucas Turner, Mark Turner, Matt Turner, and Robert Turner. They'll share their stories about the past, present, and future of Triangle X. And they'll also introduce themselves in more detail when we get started. And tonight the panel is going to be moderated by Kathryn Turner. So the whole family is out tonight. And before I get started, actually, I just named a lot of Turners and Triangle X folks from the audience. Who has a strong connection to Triangle X? If you want to raise your hand, it's just nice to see you. Good. So this is the great part about Beers and Banter. We're going to have a moderated Q&A with Kathryn and these folks, and then we'll open it to the audience to ask your own questions or perhaps share your own story. So, and then we'll be wrapping up by 7:30 or so tonight. Before we get to the panel question and answer section, we here at the museum have a very short video about the history of Triangle X. And so we're going to share that to give a little bit of context and background info, and then we'll hand it off to these guys. So thank you for being part of tonight. Thanks, Mark.
John S. Turner had been traveling to the valley for both hunting and camping trips. He and his wife Maytie found a favorite campsite situated above the Jump homestead. In 1926, when Jump was ill in the hospital, Turner offered him twice the value of his land, and it was sold. The family had initially planned to farm the land for potatoes, but found the growing season too short and the winters too harsh. They then turned to the more lucrative business of dude ranching and turned their cultivated acreage to raising cattle and hay. By 1927, the family had expanded to 20 dudes and purchased the nearby Jack Fee homestead for a total of 320 acres. They continued to cultivate their land to raise hay for the horses. The partially finished Fee homestead cabin was moved to the Triangle X as the first 10 log courses on the barn. The barn housed the dairy cows that provided the ranch and several nearby ranches with fresh dairy products. In 1929, the Turners were one of the few in the valley who knew the purpose behind the Snake River Land Company's motive in purchasing several thousand acres of land and homesteads. John D. Rockefeller Jr. was the secret financial backer with a plan to donate the lands to the federal government for conservation. The Turner family sold their land to the company in exchange for a lease to continue dude ranching operations. These types of deals in the valley were rare, as Rockefeller had most of the homesteads and ranches that he purchased torn down. Since the ranch was on the far eastern border of the valley, not blocking scenic views of the Tetons, the Turners' buildings remained. The Turners would continue to operate the Triangle X on the Rockefeller lease until 1950. When the property was transferred to the Grand Teton National Park ownership, in 1953, Grand Teton extended a concession license to John C. Turner and his wife Louise, and the Triangle X became the only dude ranch in the valley to operate on national park land. Today, a third and fourth generation of Turners work and run the ranch.
Before we start. Perhaps random videos on Triangle Access.
Visit YouTube for the next one.
You just press the button and turn screen. And then if you all want to turn on your microphones. So they turn green. Great. Yeah. And if you don't have.
On behalf of all of the department, thank you so much for having us here. Here's the answer. And just reiterating our thanks for all of you for taking the time out to come. It's wonderful to see so many friends in the audience. First question is kind of a odd question to ask of Turner, but it's what brought you to Braxton? You know about because they were all brought here. You were raised here, but what about Braxton makes you choose to continue having it be your home?
Well, good evening, and again, thank you all for coming out. This is very good for us. Why are we here, and why am I here, like I said? I did when they asked the old cowboy, hey, you lived here all your life? And he responded, oh, not yet. So I was blessed to be born in the little St. John's log house over here on the church farm. I'm still here because I couldn't find a sustainable employment anywhere else outside the valley. And so I'm here because of what we're going to talk about, to be blessed, to be part of a family, a culture, a history is significant. That is really special, and that's the kind of us. So yes, I'm Maytie Turner, born and raised like the rest of the family. I did leave for a short stint to try my hand outside the Jackson Hole Valley. It didn't take very long for me to come to my senses and know that I needed to come back here and hopefully live the rest of my life here. I lived for a short while, but I got sick and tired of waiting around on people. I was corporate. I wasn't active enough, and I think the active lifestyle that I grew up living on the ranch brought me back. Being outside all the time and working with my hands and doing what I love. So hope to stay, raising a family here now. Beautiful life, your kids, Allie, my daughter, Dean and Emma back there, who lives in the ranch. Love it. So here we are.
My name is Mark. My name is Mark Turner. I built this in the second question. Not living out of Wyoming, so I'm in Virginia. My family and brothers for the next Sarah. Was handed by the Friday the party, but grew up on the ranch, working on the ranch. Grew up, come back here. It's bush on the ranch. I work on the ranch through college, and I love coming back here. Being the part of bagger of the family.
My name is Robert Turner. Born and raised on the ranch. For me, it was a quick decision. After school, I couldn't get back on the ranch fast enough. I loved the family lifestyle, the active lifestyle, and the ranch provides. You have a good childhood, you want your family, your kids to have the same experiences that you did. My two girls, experienced it. I was working on the ranch. Really, she's working on the ranch right now too. She's in the kids. We got pregnant with the guest kids, right?
I'm glad to hear that story. We want to do that all our home.
No, I'm Matt Turner, kind of, I seem to short out the speaker, so I apologize for that, but, kind of a broken record. I think I can speak for all Turners, that you have a love for the valley, and love for the beauty of it, and the animals, and all it has to offer to everybody, but there's no question that the reason that I'm here is because of the range and the opportunity to provide. You kind of joke, it's kind of like the mothership for the Turner family, and we all go out and do things, but it's really the ranch that grounds us to the valley and brings us all home. I'm a lawyer in town, but I moved up in ranch during the summer, and all of my 3 kids, and my wife have all worked for the ranch for many years, and, it's an amazing opportunity, place to raise a family. And watching them sharing the same experiences that I got to share with my father, so it's just a beautiful spot, and that's why we're here.
So, if I was to ask, I do think that these terms, there's a lot of them, I think you were all born with St. John's Hospital. That's true. So, Allie? All right, next question. What is your favorite memory of life on Triangle X, or what's your favorite building or places on the ranch, and why?
Hi, I'm Allie, and one of my favorite memories is probably riding and we were all looking and we stopped at open escape. I had 2 little things poking out and I was closed on my nose and I left my foot up to get it out of the way. That stuck in my boot and driving me off my horse. I was hanging upside down from my gate. It was super funny and I go like we jumped off and
No particular order, my turn now? Okay. There are 3 parts to that question. I think there was a big spot on the range. So we have every Friday we do a breakfast cookout for our guests. And we ride up to the bottom, we help Center Mountains, whether you may be familiar with the old Western Zone. To me, that has always been my favorite activity throughout the week, to share with our guests and go to that breakfast spot. It overlooks the kind of state river, below the range. You can see the entire Seacon range, occupational range. But I really like Spencer's Mountain. We really enjoy those breakfast rides that we do with our guests. So that's definitely my favorite spot and activity every week.
It's a loaded question. You guys are fishing on this thing and love the river, the stretch from the fine west to the end of the was, it's only a couple miles, but it's a view shed and maybe mountain line with the soft light and the river lines up with the, this village. It's all an overlooked stretch for people. I go by that thing as well. That's one of my favorite spots of the stretch from the ranch to the ends. I grew up in one of these buildings called Jubals, still at home with the famous breakfast spot. Stopped at Jubal. There's no post office in this, but they brought up on the back. So we had a lot of many great times there. We had the last great party at the time was there called the Jubal Jubilee. And many in the audience were there that night, and I think we could talk about it for 20 years. They closed that whole big party after that, but people on the panel there had a fun memory. But the thing I love about the ranch the most is the culture. Waking up early and listening to the dance. There's always been a culture of Banter there. With your fellow colleagues, the workers, you have a show for breakfast, you have a show for work. You feel that have fun. And that balance that I think carries a good lesson for all of us in life is you have to show up in the morning, you show up to have your colleagues and have fun doing it. And I think you managed to that better than any organization I've seen, balancing that culture, work and play. And if you ignore either one of those, you don't fit in. So it means to ease out people pretty quick, but most people get the joke, and it's a nostalgic culture that I think I find refreshing. Lots of favorite places, we can go on for a while. One of them, one places here, also been experienced Fort Dodge, approach from Dodge, a lot of good memories there. But some of my favorite memories were traveling. You know, growing up on the range, the freedom that we had. One rule that my parents had would show up for breakfast, go show up for dinner. And everyone see us in the word stuff. Going floors, running around, trees, doing whatever. You know, people have a siding of the kids at some point in time during the day, but they don't get back.
As many of you may know, the Panelists Ranch has a number of different businesses and homes that we operate. We have the ranch. We also provide scenic field trips in the park. And one of the other guest services we provide is outfitting businesses and guide wilderness access and interest. And that was kind of the area that my dad Harold operated. And so I worked in the outfitting department growing up out in Paxton. And they have a shed on the ranch that we just call a pack shed. And if you basically, it just holds the cap for the mule. So it holds pads, saddles, bridle, and a smell that it just, when you walk in, it's always the same, always there, and it always reminds me of the ranch. And just because I spent so much time in the back shed growing up and kind of the smell and western nature of it, I love the back shed. It's kind of fun. The smell when you walk out of there, it's one of my favorite places. It's not there. Yeah, I'm stop there.
You know, I often there the other day. 80 degrees outside, and it was probably like 6 feet high. You know, it's an old building, and I'm looking around and I'm like, this will make it my decision. I was amazing how well insulated that building is.
Well, the Panelists was really interesting complex historical building. Many of them built by the Turners. In the first quarter of the century, the Panelists had no electrical power, no real power. So everything was double-bitted axes and that all mostly. But then we had a collection of buildings throughout Grand Teton Park. And for years, unfortunately, the park had almost incremental little homestead cabins and doing away with them. We were bringing them down numbers. To return the landscape back to the start. My dad was pretty much the goal, and he was sure of these buildings, 4 sleep cabins, homestead cabins. He'd stack them up, bring them up, and turn it up, so that he's pretty good buildings. It's interesting. We were fortunate to live in a cabin on the range, we call it as was mentioned because of the movie, but was probably the oldest log cabin in Jackson Hole that anybody still lives in. It's certainly one of the two oldest buildings in Grand Teton National Park. That building was built by the Wedges, is the first homesteaders on Mormon Road. They built this house pretty big, 2 stories, and it's a pretty good cabin in 1907. We gotta remember all of this, because the history of Jackson Hole is pretty young. And in the first part, settlers, non-indigenous people, really only
started living very around the 1890s. I got selling in at opera houses and tennis courts and California girls. So if I started this log cabin Jewel, which built in 1907, and they said, well, we're gonna be 19 years old today. Followed that old building.
Fantastic. You know, as we're listening to your answers, it brings home what I see as the essence of this centennial celebration. In a nutshell, it's one family who's been very, very fortunate and blessed to live in one place, loves it deeply, and have been called to share it for generations with people from all over the world. The next question, someone, help all these people here understand a sound specific to the ranch that explains something about life there. Who wants to start?
All right, I'll try to tackle that one. I think the sounds are very seasonal. And we'll kind of, I don't know, maybe it's an analogy, but I think in the winter time, there's not many sounds at all, very, very quiet, very refreshing. And it allows you to recover from all the summer sounds. You know, and then as we just get through your kind of refreshing, very quiet, through the winter night, maybe snow blowing against the window and a good Jackson Hole blizzard or something. Good late spring brings the bird back and then it sort of regenerates the life in the valley. And with that regeneration, you start bringing in your staff show up. You're allowed trucks from Georgia to drive up and down the driveway. Get the ranch going and then get your guests in and you try to sleep with the windows open because it's starting to warm up and you hear guests down on the main house porch, around the fire and having a great time. And carrying on, laughing, you know, that's a great time. You know, they're enjoying themselves. And then away from the main house, up where our dorms are, you hear our employees also having a great time. Not always the sound I want to hear, but at least I haven't had it. So just a lot of life in the summertime, a lot of mixed sounds, hard to see past 4 o'clock, the green was open, you got stormy birds outside, robins chirping, horses, you know, neighing each other as they're anglers rounding up. So it's a variation of sounds in summer, fall, you know, bugling, because I'm down on the river. And things kind of start to fade out, and when birds, guests leave, employees leave, and then get back into that silence with the winter. We catch our breath.
Wow, great answer. Looks like these people are windows open in the summertime and jewels next to the corral stuff. Most of the sound doesn't mean that the still there of course is, you know, rain will go out in the morning early, sunrise, and you always tell the young wranglers, the new ranges are always making a lot of noise. Him up, push the horses along there, you hear the horses neighing. And have you ever been on a pasture for a long trail ride? This thing's kind of rhythmic, almost hypnotic. The note that takes place with like cooking clap and like sort of like for hours and hours on the go trail and then sound making sure we bust water and cobblestones is very cathartic and part of them. I don't know, it's kind of redneck, especially for hours and hours on end, solitude. And the only thing you hear is the cooking clap of the folks. Another trail stuff. Open night, never come around and don't work people. I don't know what's it.
Just to add on, sounds that just take me to a place, straight down the birds, chickadees coming in, you know, that's, I love that. Big sound for me, doing a little bit of Packers for 40+ years. And taking care of the stock, and all of the bells, you know, you do. You just get to know, you've got certain bells and certain forces, and you get to know those bells. And it's amazing how well you sleep when you have those bells. Nothing wakes you up faster than science. Said you're out the forces, look at the horses and mules. So I really love sound test.
Well, they saved my thunder. If the bells are going to be my answer as well, and Robert said it, I do repeat it, but, and even Mark mentioned it about how we start our morning at the ranch and easily going out and gathering the horses and bringing them in, but the bells on the horses, always moving. So the bells are a very distinctive sound for the ranch. And I'll also say, although I'm cheating and I'm not answering the right question, but there's a smell that reminds me of the ranch as well, which is same. And it goes to what Lucas said, which is things that indicate how the seasons change and how our lives change with the seasons. And the winter's sterile, not just from the sound point of view, but drawing a lot of aromas in the wintertime. And you know the summer's coming, and well, horses are, you're gonna be riding at that day when it warms up enough to smell the corrals. And it was just an undeniable sign of spring, and you're coming back from school and walking up the road and you see areas and smell the manure and corrals, and it's just a very homey feeling. So it reminds you of the ranch, and you know summer's coming and seasons are changing, and you can look forward to greenery, so. I cheated because you still not those.
Will you speak to the dinner bell? Talk more about that. With that.
Well, that's a different bell, but you're exactly right, Cass. So we, at the ranch, we have meal times, we serve our meals family style. And we also have a kid program, so the kids generally at the ranch are doing their own thing, and that was key in really getting this going. They eat together, they ride together, they do things together. But the bell is dinner time, breakfast time, and lunchtime, which Robert mentioned. We have two bells. And so the first bell is when the kids come up and the second bell is when the adults come up and eat for the guests. And if you don't make it on time, you don't eat, but it's, a lot of the ranch is centered around the dinner bell and the lunch bell, so you're right. There's more than one bell, yeah.
One sound about the ranch is if we're sleeping, we can hear the wind going through the trees, and that shows how such a free place trying to us. If you go to sleep in a city or something, they'll just text and cars.
Well, with my current hearing impairment, sounds are becoming more challenging. Well, there's the traditional sound that's great to share with our guests. It's usually will go off and songs. Trumpet with the trumpet song, and sandhill cranes down in the river bottoms. But one sound unique to return to us. Mary Kay and I and the family have our house at the ranch located pretty close to the trail, so that wonderful ritual of 300 plus head of horses every morning that with bells, the clicking of hose, the clapping of hands on shafts and grinders getting those are just great sound. As I already mentioned, one sound is really special. You get to enjoy it as silence. Just silence.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What's something an outsider would not know about the Triangle X, or what are some visitors surprised to discover at the Triangle X?
Go without. Well, a few of you might recognize two things I would mention there. One, it reminds me of the early history of the Triangle X. And how difficult those early folks that decided to make a life here, how challenging it was to live in Jacksonville. Your entire year was spent surviving winter. Mountains of firewood, just hunt homes. You were isolated, so you had to have enough food, produce and everything for the little ones. You probably had to have ice to keep, your food cool and enough food for your livestock, for your family. And then, just trying to make a little, how tough it was to live in Jacksonville in this early period. The second thing I would mention is some of my own thinking, if you don't know the real, the history, the lore of the American cowboy in the West has essentially been focused on livestock and cattle. And I submit to you that epicenter is shifted. There's two cattle ranches where there are wagons on summer clinics because they're putting a lot of time in the cattle. But I think a lot of cattle ranches today, they're over quarter horsemen to 50 cattle back down the lower pasture because of pickups and dirt bikes and 4 wheels. The guys that are maintaining the expertise of horses, and carrying people and long distance, really is bigger outfitters and do ranches today. Our guides and outfitters, some of these guys located here, yeah, you're not unusual to put 1,000, 2,000 miles from your own house. Not many people in the cow business put no much kind of miles, so we know how horses, how to pack a diamond, how to move through the wilderness. I know how that skill set in many ways is being kept alive by I would like to do that, I like to find the rest of those and your wilderness outfitting.
Allie, what are some of your friends surprised about eventually?
There's probably most surprised me about when they come here, all the pretty spots that there are. And how much we enjoy them.
I think the thing I relate to most is, most of you like to know now, especially after watching the short, video on the history of the ranch is, the ranch is not, it's not private land, it's not owned by the Turners, and it's a partnership. With Jason Town National Park and National Park Service, and the ranch itself sits on National Park. I think when our employees show up, that's surprising to them, and of course, a lot of first time guests. So that leads us then to explain the history of the ranch and how it was sold. And just in front of the national park for a very long process. And now everything that we do, is a partnership and under the National Park Service governance. So I think that really surprises people when they learn that the ranch sits on the national park.
I'm gonna give a philosophical answer, you may or may not agree with this. The thing that the ranch, many of you guys have experienced with is that they haven't changed much from what we offer. People the last 100 years, when you think the people when we come to the ranch, all the things they're expecting in the modern world, television, Wi-Fi, and off services and all those things that we're competing against in the hospitality world, we expect a lot of things to keep it occupied, and the ranch has been bound to that trend. We kept it the same. And when you tell people there's no Wi-Fi for ranch and there's no TVs, we get some pushback when they get there. It takes them up 3 days or so, and the kids are out there and they haven't been on their phones and they're dirty and they're there's just a light that starts to come on them and the parents as well. And we don't need all that stuff, especially all the trends of AI and stuff. It's a throwback place and for these guys credit, they've kept it that way. Part of their legacy, but it's fascinating to watch a new family at the ranch on day three. They're a different person that changes. Your perception of what you need in this analog lifestyle still have a role in the world that we can still compete for the highest level or the highest rank advantage to keep doing that, I think, because we haven't forgotten the roots of the analog experience and the great outdoors and mashed potatoes and crazy stuff.
Makes you, it's not just go by. To me, it was surprising, really, the renovation process with this new guest. And you can explain it to families going, you're gonna see your kids go eat what they don't love it. I like, we want to, but you want to. And it really comes back to simplicity. You just take down the layers that we're used to, or very used to in a house, in a home, or, they're very unplugged. Some of these kids are putting their phones on the bed, you start with people behind, with communication now, and out playing games with no cards. You're just kind of getting back to the basics. And that really surprises me, yes. And honestly, I think that's what brings back a lot of the old guests. Just because we don't chill, and we're keep it simple, and it works.
Hard to last. Well, at the risk of bragging and patting ourselves on the back. As the ranch is aware, they don't let me do much these days, but I do try to eat dinner with the guests during the summer. And, as do others, but that's kind of one thing that I do. And I go down, and most of the time, the guests are leaky. I mean, we don't get that many new guests. We have a very strong return customer that keeps coming back year after year. But one comment that I receive all the time is how unexpected it was for the Turners to be so involved with me. We eat dinner with them. We have Lucas out there handing out horses. We have our kids taking rides in pack trips, and it's been surprising and rewarding to have the guests tell us that they're not used to that kind of interaction with the family and the actual owners of the business. And I think that kind of goes to the heart of what Guest Ranch is what we try to provide, and in many respects, the historic ranch that we kind of build ourselves after. So I realize I'm sounding boastful, but that is something that is cold to me while from the guest repeatedly, and how much they appreciate the Turner connection.
We're gonna start with you. What tradition
What are you looking at?
tell us what tradition has remained the same and was evolved over the last 100 years of the Panelists?
Well, as everyone said, our ranch operates basically the same as it operated 80 years ago. So many of our traditions are the same as far as horseback riding, traditional dune ranching, it's square dancing. I mean, our programs have really remained the same because we try to stay true to the historic dune range. But I really think that as far as something that hasn't changed, and we can go back to my Uncle John's mother, but the rest of our grandmother and great grandmother really has to do with personal hospitality and trying to meet people and our guests and share our values in the ranch with them. And part of that, that's the tradition has been carried on for generations. It was indicated that the ranch started, we tried to be a potato growing family, that didn't work very well, and then we tried to raise cattle, and that didn't work very well, but the Turners have been blessed with being able to connect with people and host people and share the value with them, and I really think that our focus on that is the traditionally things we all focus on and want to carry on, regardless of the activity. That's my knee-jerk reaction to that one, yeah.
Great job. That's why I'm starting with you.
I would say, things that haven't changed, when we really started, and that's to give people a little experience with what we're hoping. Which centers around the horse. And that's still the main activity, that's still the main draw. We just happen to have some really beautiful countries that I know. But that's why people come, that's what we do best. And give people that romance, let the be out in the west and have a little bit taste of it. There's less and less places people can go now to get that experience. The Flying West, we're very fortunate to do a lot. That all the question, I don't know what else.
What has changed over the years and what has evolved?
So probably one of the biggest things that's changed is actually the business side of it. We work very hard, not having the guest experience and see the changes that actually do come out in the office. My dad took me out of the office, or took me out of the mountains 21 years ago and stuck me in the office. I have forgiven him. But it's completely different than the world when I started it. The marketing, the regulations, all you never wanted to miss a call because I was a potential client. You know, you have to if you're a step. Marketing, they're probably the biggest changes. Yeah, that's been the biggest change.
So that's why I'm thinking that, most was not about me, but I'm not on the ranch and I don't do services, but I would contest the tradition of us going to the mountains and outfitting on the river. The current spirit on this thing has been better and longer than anybody, maybe in the West. We're talking not thousands of miles, but millions of miles, river bends. We still run a first class healthcare business and access the tough business. That make a lot of financial sense. Using the same old sense and the amount of help with Chase, not me, but Harold and my dad and Donald and even before that, we were the first hunting camp up there in the 1920s. We think about the longevity of knowledge with the crews and people with special. We still tie the same diamond history we've had for the last 100 years. You guys know the wilderness, the famous history. I think, I don't know, there's gotta be, Turner family has a legacy of miles in the saddle and the boats and just the walls which we cruise and tradition. I don't think this is masked in the West. I'm saying none of these guys get out there. I think it's true. And that's me. The thing was changed. I think the liability of running around. The attorney, the litigation, and the insurance departments, the different beats now than it was. People that are taking on safety and keeping people safe. We want to put a lot of people on highways and posts and we let people run. Of course, there's just a high liability for them to start to do it on safety, but the difficult one is 50 years ago.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, just kidding. Okay. I was gonna talk about our version of this. My lawyer here, you can shut them off. I heard some stories and I see a couple of guests here. When you guys ever part of that rough ride? Yeah. Maybe you can tell us a little more about that, because that predates me, but, not to put you on the spot, but I think, the world has definitely changed, and I hear the stories of what we used to do out on our rides with our guests versus what we have to do now, it's because of the liability, and I don't mean this in a bad way, sorry not to offend any of our guests here, but I do think people are a little bit more practiced these days. Not as many pocket rolls, more, that's all we are doing. It doesn't happen a lot, but I think we pay a lot more attention to our risk management than we did back in the day, and we have to the game to get.
I think bring up the word green from, I'm truly.
You have some helmets, no, you have helmets, no, not that.
All this change is for 97 years, the guests got to stay for 7 weeks. I don't know when I said it. So that's the only thing. Now we do straight dancing on Monday. Took out the night, the last year took out on Tuesday, the lunch cookout on Wednesday, we have the Sunday night cookout. We have the all day ride on Thursday, and the breakfast cookout on Friday, and we just not have an afternoon ride after that breakfast cookout, that's how we go.
So, I guess we put some of that back on us, that our guest rules, Dr. Two. We built in a little refresher day.
We were riding back from the river last night, just before the smoke. Of course, he comes to the rodeo gate, he's gonna open the gate, he's gonna shut the gate. I try to hand him back so he goes with me. Little Allie here is the one that opened the gate and closed the gate. And she's done a pretty tall pose. The chain and the gate are pretty long. I'm gonna watch her work her horse, make her stand there. She's like a pretzel upside down, wrapping these chains around the post, that horse is moving. And all you can see is her boots picking up the air. This little gal playing the tradition. It's been touched upon, but it's slowly settling in with me as we celebrate our 100. By the Panelists is really blessed in its traditions. The Panelists is blessed because it offers the whole package of traditional food management rarely found in operation today. And some of the stuff you mentioned, I mean, the Panelists was floating the state river things and fishing decades before other outfitters we've heard about the vaccination. In the 12 those countries in the 30s and 40s. We have a full working ranch with plenty of hay. We're blessed to have enough land to pasture and wrangle horses. We can raise our own stuff. We do, well, one of the, I guess, what's the sense of building this outfitting operations left in the United States. Along with big we are open in the winter, we can offer crop protection in the snow growth. I know of a lot of fine bluegrass that are authentic. Lucas Turner will be president of the Bluegrass Association next year, representing bluegrasses all over the North. And I think the Panelists, we are really fortunate to have the land we have, to have the family we have, the skill set we have, and after the package of traditional restaurants and outdoor activities, really unparalleled. And for that, we are very fortunate. So that in addition to longevity, what goes on out there, the skill sets, and the diverse activities that you can share with people. And that's the bottom line. The traditions that we have families, council here, and these folks continue to build West in 1962, she doesn't want to slow down. Biological and serious. Well, we have a lot of time, 20, 50 years ago, the part of the Congress. That's one of our greatest things.
Excellent. Here we are at the museum, American History Museum, and it's the 250th birthday of the country. Are there any other examples of living history?
What was the question?
Are there any other examples of living history? When I was in the West?
Here we go down here. Living history. I'll say that in the last couple of questions, we talked a lot about what the ranch offers and as far as the services that we provide to our guests and we take them really serious. So I'm gonna answer that. This question from kind of a selfish personal point. And I indicated earlier that my dad, Harold, kind of had the opportunity to operate the ranch, and so that's what I grew up doing. I over aspects, but I went on, I don't know how many packers with my dad, but it was an amazing opportunity to share with him what he did growing up on the ranch, and to have a continuation of that's what he did and shared experience. And my wife James down here, someplace, if she was over there, but we have 3 kids and our kids have all worked on the ranch for 8 or 9 years. And they all work in the wilderness active part of the business. And like I said, there's lots of different parts, but they get to experience the same thing that I got to experience and that my dad experienced. And there's a certain sense of continuity and shared experience there that I think is rare. And it's amazing. We can sit down and my dad passed back in, my dad passed back in December, but we could sit down at a Christmas table or, Easter dinner and talk about a place in the wilderness or something that Noel did, and you have 3 generations who all get and understand it and can share the experience. And so that's obviously an answer that's not related to the services we provide for our guests, but it is something that's special to me and it's really unique and amazing to be a part of. So sorry if I'm happy, but that's kind of my selfish view.
I'm just gonna play off of that, it is family. The fact that we are 5th generation of very affluent, we don't find out in a Denver business. And the 6th generation, I think we're planning on the future,
Not yet, not yet.
But, I think we're showing a pretty good roadmap, for future traders, so, and we're kind of in uncharted country for payment focus. Not many neighbors are part of it.
I'm gonna give 2 answers to the question, living history. I think your response was true. Love and conservation, so. As many of you guys know, and I don't think they've met, that there's been probably north of 15 marriages coming out of the range, but people didn't know that it. Most of them are still married, I believe. We did the best. Anybody ever meet their stop on the ranch?
I did.
So, there's young people working hard together and there's always love interest, some good, some bad was, I think many of the people have met their spouses on the ranch and continue to share that love for gamblers. Second part of the question of conservation, many of you guys know the history of the Eden Ranch, Teddy Roosevelt fell in love with the West through the Eden Ranch, South Dakota, I believe. And it was through that love of hunting and the outdoors that he became a conservationist. And that story repeated itself at many different levels of the ranch. So many people that come to the ranch fall in love with it. Some of our family, including my father, and others, fell in love with the country and committed their life to protect it. And I think conservation works best when you love the land and your hair gets pushing the pop away, and the ranch does that better than any safari trip where you really get ingrained with, the culture of working and living in the outdoors, and that love creates the interest in protecting it, and I think that's one of the great legacies of we ranchers in the top of the country. We would not have our park systems or refuge systems without Teddy being introduced to the last to the new range.
All right, living history, I'm gonna focus in on some of the activities at the ranch, and I think that obviously the big ones that most few ranches center around, and of course, we do is the horse aspect that, the human horse connection goes way, way back, much smarter than myself and tell me exactly when. But I know that's been around for a while, and that is the main activity of the ranch, and the connections we make with our horses and the definitions with our horses. And for that to be their main mode of transportation to explore Teton National Park and bring the Teton National Forest facility, I think takes people back in time, for sure. I think another thing maybe unique to the west, and particularly the valley, you ride around our pastures surrounded by fence. We're still using the old buck and rail fence. You don't have exclusively buck and rail, but if you're not familiar with the buck and rail fence, you know, it's a buck kind of shaped like an X. And then it's got 3 or 4 rails between the blocks, and the reason that's used in this part of the world is because of the very rocky soil. It's very hard to dig a post hole, so they can post in the ground. They put stuck a block on top of the ground, put a few rails between it, and then you still utilize those today, but slowly being phased out. With post pounders and more maybe wildlife friendly type fencing. And then I think of our wilderness operations, summer pack trips and big game hunting, which occurs up in Teton Wilderness. And if you're not familiar with the wilderness area, it's managed by the Department of Agriculture, part of the forest, but it has its own specific set of rules. The main one being, it needs to remain primitive, so no mechanical advantage, can't ride a bike in the wilderness, can't put chainsaw in the wilderness. So nothing with the gear, nothing with the motor, nothing with the wheel, and, in spring, when Robert gets the crew together, they ride into the wilderness, and they got to clear their shells that they're gonna ride on. Forest Service is not capable of clearing all the shells up there. And they're using what has to be one of the earliest tools around, and the process saw. So it's a 2-man saw, and it's not as easy as it looks. You got one man on the side, and the whole method behind it is to let the weight of the saw do the work, and you just pull, push. And it's kind of like a dance almost, to get it right. But I think that definitely takes us back in time when we're going through all this. So those are 3 things on my mind, but yeah, there's still living history at the very.
What's some history? What's some history stuff is the teen overnight, they don't go to cookout, they go up and they camp. They don't take a camper or even a tent, they just sleep under the spot. They just use the park.
Yeah.
Like the old days on the range, right? Yeah.
No phones and no phones.
Yeah, I think, the living history was really that's a lot of comes to mind when you know things that go on in the new town, but I think, the triangle is really a keeper, a special skill set of how to operate with livestock in wild country. They're growing this property. They don't know how the animal works, how to take care of people in the whole country. Is you want to go to Cody, you're trying to ask the country to Cody. They want to go to Lewis. I mean, they're not many for their here the mules, pack animals, the tools, the certain trails and so forth, even some of our government agencies, unfortunately, folks don't cooperate around the program and hitch how to use training, how to keep mules moving and safe. So I'm especially proud of that know-how and And things haven't changed, I mean, maybe the state flags are a little more strong than the national flag. Other than that, they're still doing the very like Jim Bridger and a few other counties had 12 days early. And even when the horse and the pack out, but then came in. It's still really,
I'm gonna jump into, acknowledge that we are a local branch, and by definition, that we are still maintaining flag ratings on our own pay, which is pick up, and reading on horses and parking, which I has nothing to do with. One of the things that I see has changed dramatically in the last 100 years is our family tree. I want to see the bird, and I want to acknowledge everyone this year is so permanent. Please, raise your hand, Dan, Mary Kay, Wonder. Stand up, I think we need to make sure nobody misses you. All of them. Stand up, we got Turner, stand up. Wait, that last, no question, right on, let's go, what are you excited about? The next 100 years of turning up?
I'm excited to start our next 100 years. It's a future that I think is worth keeping. Even the traditional life.
I agree with Robert. I don't have much more to add. I think that we all really appreciate the opportunity to provide the services that we've provided for the last 100 years to guests of the valley, and I know I can speak for everybody up here and all the Turners that are in the audience that we all really love it. We really do. We take a lot of pride in it, and I'm just excited to continue and to see the next generation step in. We're stuck in the mud, guys. I don't see us changing much. We're going to keep running the way we run it. But I'm excited to see them continue and the 56th generation step in and take over.
Yeah, I think your question is a big answer, and not working it. And some of you is probably going down, being the right religious answer. But, I think one of the things that just want to mention about before we close that is how much people that come to the ranch, work with guests on the ranch, how much we appreciate it. For what makes the ranch, the guests, my dad's saying for 60 some odd years, it's incredible workers there. It's really the heartbeat of the legacy of our ranch is the guests and the workers that we have there, and we want to extend our gratitude to everyone that's crossed our path. Made this place special, made it their own home, made a life there in Jackson. We're grateful for that, and we hope in the next 100 years, we can provide this leadership and service, and that you guys will reciprocate by visiting us. And I think that's very good.
Yeah, the next 100 years, definitely not looking out 100 years, but it's great to have that future in front of us with the potential there. I think the most exciting thing is looking like our next 15 or so years are pretty assured. We're currently working with the National Park Service, and it's safe to say we're going to have a new contract soon and be able to move forward. That is one thing that kind of dictates our future, of course, is that park contract. We're good partners with the park, have a great relationship, and I don't foresee that really changing, but that is one hurdle. It looks like our next round is ahead of us, and that's promising. And to kind of dovetail maybe off of Matt and Robert's stuff a little bit, much as I love working with the ranch, it is a lot of work, it's tiring, and I'm getting ready to be excited to watch maybe some fresh blood come in and help with some of that heavy lifting.
What I'm excited about for the next 100 years is being able to work on my interest in the actors.
Well, definitely our old card looking for the future is Allie and her fifth generation comments, and that's exciting. There's some practical challenges that are worth mentioning. You all own the Congress, as well as the American public, and then left to be partners with the National Park Service, so. Then we have the Department of Interior, is your representative of the people who arranges along children. Economically, it's a tough business, it's seasonal, it's operation, hell of a high overhead. So we look at school section need and people willing to make the hours, but, I think it fills a special niche for people who come to Jackson Hole and want to come to the American West. The parents probably nerve to get there, and some of those beautiful landscapes that the good Lord has created, one of the most exciting wildlife complexes left on the planet. And we have the opportunity to take people and touch base with that, share it with them, so hopefully there's a positive answer to the next 100 years.
So those are the questions that we're gonna have reviewable. Moderators questions.
Yeah, let's maybe take 3 questions from the audience.
This is for John, I think that's what I'm getting. So we know the ranch has been walking the best for 100 years, but John, I'm just wondering, how old is your hat?
It's a brand new hat.
Bon John, I'm living history. And I think you've left out really an important part of living history today as a resident of this town. And that is the Turner women. We need to thank you for who you brought to life. The ladies who were married kids, and they just keep the life of the family, the leadership of the nonprofits. Your painting, I wake up to every morning. Dr. Turner, I'm alive because of you. Gentlemen, thank you for bringing these ladies into our life. Thank you.
All the Turner men married up. One more question?
How'd the ranch get its name?
And I answer? So I had a little boy at the ranch come up and ask me that question, and I didn't know the answer. And he, at the end of the week, he came to me and he said, "Lady, I know now why you're called the Triangle X. It's because of the X's of the 9 fences and the triangle of the mountains." That's the answer I did. Is there a real answer?
Well, the Triangle X was my granddad's invention, and that's in the bar on the end, and it was a very easy brand to apply to this thing was pretty on. The question I do get, well, why do you put a damn 2? Why do you got Triangle X 2? And I wish we could think about more wild world answer, but you turn this type of brand in the Wyoming Brand Commission, the Triangle X, and the real captains, they wanted to brand. In those days, people were stealing cattle and changing brands, that could be a double diamond, it could be named to a 4, whatever. So I think you put another symbol on there. Sometimes the 2 is very difficult to change. And with new brands, you don't want too many hot angles close together. You want to keep that heat separated a little bit. The 2 does that. And the churches just turned that thing around and said, I said, fine, put 2 out together. We don't care because in the early days, you try the last time, others ran their cattle on public lands. And so in the fall, the animals, cattle, and the Hansons and the Bills and everybody, they have to sort those cattle to get them on the ground. I really appreciate the observation on women. I think you look at the really famous food managers, Jackson Hole history, RBC, Breakfast, they were all successful, because of strong, very capable, hospitable, hardworking women. When I think of what women did the early Dutch days and the train last day, I mean, trying to cook for everybody, trying to keep the household, trying to bake, trying to do laundry, trying to take care of kids, help with the hay and everything. I asked my mom one time, Mom, what did you dread most? She said, well, I don't know, but I hated cleaning the damn milk separator. And for those of you, the Turners milk cows because they were trying to, everybody had tried to generate fat. Well, the Turners tried to get like milking cows, put that milk in a milk can, put it on the mail flight or mail wagon, and they reach the mail and milk they wanted to the day and keep the ledger how much they own the old Turners for milk. Well, the men bring in milk buckets into the main house, so there's no much moves on right here. Mom took that down to the milk separator and measured. Big steel drum with a lot of stainless steel pipes and screws. And by hand, you turn that milk, separate the cream and the butter. And she said to heat the stove, crank the warm water, separate that milk, and then go down and clean that damn milk separator every day. That was just a symbol of what the early women did, making clothes, and a lot of people school their kids at home, because they're trying to last in the early days. Turners only went to town twice a winter. There's no open highways over there. You had these self-contained, and by that, it was the women from daybreak till the district of non-labor time. That did the work. But they seem to have a way with people. My mom happened for this valley, whether it was the wildfires, or the some of the people, she had a way of sharing out with people that time. The women are key to the history of the country. Thank you.
All right, we'll try again. My husband and I we didn't move here, but we bought a place in 2010. We came here for vacation, since brought the kids to the holidays, and basically fell in love with this area. But after my husband died, I moved here full time. And it was a huge adjustment for me because I'm basically a permanent part. I'm really socially anxious, although you probably don't think so right now, but I am. And I was welcomed into this community of Kathryn and Mary Kay and John, who adopted me and included me in their family. But I feel like I have a second family, and my kids feel the same way. They come out here, they are part of the Turner family. Loved and accepted the same way that I love you guys. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you guys again. Thank you, Kathryn, for helping really organize and bring this all together. And thank you all for coming out. We are going to keep the bar open for a little bit if folks want to mingle and chat with the Turners. And thank you and enjoy the museum. So we'll see you next time.